Year 10 and 11, welcome to your analysis of Lord Capulet in preparation for your AQA English Literature Shakespeare exam. Remember that this is an unseen exam, so you won't have the play in front of you, so we need to remember quotations. If you can't remember quotations word for word, we need to be able to paraphrase quotations. You do need to know the entire play as best as possible. You can be asked about theme or character, so this obviously is focusing on the character of Lord Capulet. So very simply, he is Juliet's father, he is very wealthy, he is the head of the Capulet family, he's having an ongoing feud with the head of the other family, Lord Montague. He is looking to find a husband for Juliet and considers Paris the worthiest suitor. The tragic death of Tybalt in Act 3, Scene 1 means Paris fears that Juliet cannot be wooed because she's so upset. Lord Capulet in Act 3, Scene 4 reassures Paris that as her father and the head of the household, it is Juliet's duty to obey him and marry the man of his choosing. Juliet refuses to marry Paris. Lord Capulet then becomes aggressive and very dominant. This is Act 3, Scene 5. But by the end of the play, he makes peace with Lord Montague. When the play opens, there's the fight scene between the Capulets and the Montagues. And during this scene, his role is very fleeting, but he appears aggressive. Quotation, "What noise is this? Give me my long sword." Despite his age, he is willing and ready to fight. He's very demanding there, "Give me my sword." And this aggression is almost a foreshadowing of the aggression we will see in Act 3, Scene 5, when Juliet refuses to the marriage of Paris. In Act 1, Scene 2, this establishes how Juliet is subject to parental influence. Okay, so he's having a conversation with Paris, isn't he? Now, Juliet's father can force her to marry whomever he wants, and that is the difference between being a man and a woman in Verona. Juliet's status as a young woman leaves her with no power or choice in any social situation, and that is like any other female in this culture. She will be passed from the control of one man, i.e. her father, to another. In this instance, it would be Paris. In this scene, Act 1, Scene 2, Capulet appears to be kind. He defers to Juliet's ability to choose for herself. Quotation, "My will to her consent is but a part." But his power to force her into a marriage, if he feels necessary, is still present. Thus, parental influence in this tragedy is a tool of fate. Juliet's arranged marriage with Paris and the feud between Capulets and Montagues will contribute to the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Parental influence is evident in this scene and acts as an aspect of the force wielded over individuals by social structure such as family, religion and politics. So, parental influence and women's place in society and man's place in society is highly important, especially when you're dealing with Lord Capulet and Juliet. So as I say, at first in this scene, he appears to be kind-hearted and concerned with Juliet's welfare and Juliet's happiness. As I say, the quotation, "My will to her consent is but a part." It's as if he is considering how his daughter feels, which we don't really expect of a father at the time. I'm going to continue on with Act 1, Scene 2 on the next slide. So not only does it appear that he's considering how she feels, but he appears to some degree very protective over Juliet. And he actually tells Paris that she's too young to be married. Quotation, "My child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Massive quotation when we're talking about actually Juliet's character as well and how she develops from a naive child into a woman. But certainly Lord Capulet, because it's as if he does want to protect her because she's so naive and so young. So we have this protective father. So we've gone from the aggressive guy in the fight of Act 1, Scene 1, to this protective father who cares for the happiness of his daughter. And if you carry on, he also suggests that he wants Juliet to love the man she marries. And that's not the case later on in the play. Sorry, I've missed the E off case, my fault. That isn't the case later on in the play, because as we know, in Act 3, Scene 4, when he tells Paris she'll marry him, he doesn't even consult Juliet. So here, it's almost like he wants her to be in love with the man she chooses, quotation, but woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. Perhaps more importantly, he even encourages Paris to look at other women at the ball. So remember, he tells Paris to come to this ball that he's holding at his house. But he encourages him to look at other women because he actually might like other women more than Juliet, quotation, which on more view of many, mine being one, may stand in number, though in reckoning none. So wait a minute. We've got a protective father who seems concerned about Juliet's happiness, a father who wants his daughter to be in love with the man she marries, and then not only that, but to ensure that it's almost the right choice for his daughter, encourages Paris to see if he likes other women and whether or not Juliet is special enough. So actually at the beginning of the play, i.e. Act 1, Scene 2, Lord Capulet is not the stereotypical father we would expect of the time the play was written. And he's very protective, and he seems loyal to Juliet, and he seems to look after her best interests. Apologies that I missed the E off case there. Sorry about that. I mentioned a few things about context just a few minutes ago, so we better look at that again, just because the examiners will look for references to context. Okay, so the time the play was written. Now, I'm sure you already know this. At the time the play was written, society was patriarchal, and that means that men were the leading figures and make all the decisions. Men dominate and men rule. A father had complete control over the women in his family, i.e. Wife and daughter. Women had no voice in society. They were domestic, they didn't have jobs, there was no opportunities, they had to obey their father, their husband, their brother, etc. And they weren't given an education. So that is massive when you are talking about Lord Capulet, the father of Juliet, because this is huge in his character in Act 3, Scene 4, when he really does take control over Juliet. Act 3, Scene 4. So this is when Capulet is talking to Paris. It is after the death of Tybalt and the banishment of Romeo. Capulet's reasons for moving up the date of Juliet's marriage to Paris are not altogether clear. In later scenes, he states that he desires to bring some joy into a sad time and to want to cure Juliet of her deep mourning. Remember, she's mourning for Romeo's banishment, not Tybalt's death, although Lord Capulet does think it is for Tybalt's death. A marriage between his daughter and Paris, who is a close kinsman to the prince, would go a long way in the regard of Capulet's position within society. His decision also makes obvious the powerlessness of women in Verona. So again, we have context here. Context emerges again here because we once again see just how powerless Juliet is. And she, I suppose, is a reflection of women. Your quotation, I think she will be ruled in all respects by me. That not only shows us the power of Capulet, but men. And the guy from Act 1, Scene 2, who was concerned about his daughter's happiness and concerned about the man his daughter married, has gone. And all of a sudden, we have the stereotypical representation of a father at the time, of a man at the time. He is going to control Juliet, his daughter, and make her do as he wishes. Look at that. I think she will be ruled by me. Look at the word ruled. Okay. He is also determined to push the wedding from Wednesday to Thursday. Now, just a few days earlier, he wanted to postpone the wedding by ages, didn't he? He wasn't really that keen. And now all of a sudden he wants it to happen very, very quickly. And he says to Lady Capulet, prepare her. Get her ready to marry Paris. So we have almost the direct opposite of what we've seen in Act 1, Scene 2 here in Act 3, Scene 4. He is controlling. He wants to rule Juliet. He's very powerful, and he is a stereotypical father/man of the time. His short quotations, I think she will be ruled in all respects by me. Prepare her. And then we're straight into Act 3, Scene 5, aren't we? And Romeo has left. Juliet has been told by Lady Capulet that she's going to get married. Now, Juliet feels so strong that she defies her father. But in this action, she does learn the limit of her power. And when she refuses, Capulet goes off into a massive rage, doesn't he? He's absolutely furious. Quotation, "Oh, I will drag thee on a hurdle thither." So look at "I will drag thee" for a quick short quotation. We've almost got violence coming in here. As I said on the last slide about Act 3, Scene 4, we've got this dominant, powerful man. And he is aggressive now. He becomes aggressive, and he does become violent in the words he uses and the way he expresses himself, saying that if you don't do as I say, I'll force you. Again, showing us just how powerless she is, really. And as strong as she might be, she is still a woman in a male-dominated world. And as we know, Lord Capulet has the right to make her do what he wants. What I've done there underneath is I've just put a list of quick quotations. If we're trying to remember quick quotations and paraphrase them, I think that these are probably the most important ones. So when he's in this massive rage and he's shouting at her and he's potentially grabbing her and he's having a go at her and he's saying you have to do as I say, and he's so enraged that she would refuse him. Because remember, at the time, as I said earlier, women had no voice. They wouldn't dare defy their father. And this is how he responds. He shouts, "Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch." So again, look at the word disobedient, because it defies the preconceptions of society at the time. So he tells her she's disobedient. He even tells, "Hang thee." Look at how violent that is. And look at how he refers to her as baggage. We all know what that means. Baggage is, it's almost something you don't want. It's something that's like clinging on and you're carrying it around with you. And that's how he refers to her. Almost like a burden. Quick quotation, "Get thee to church." Sorry, I stuttered there. "Get thee to church." So again, it's this commanding language he uses. He uses a lot of imperatives to be forceful and give orders, which, as I say, shows his power, his dominance. "Speak not, reply not." So she's not even allowed to speak back. When he goes into this massive rage, he's saying to her, "Dare you speak back to me?" And she kind of doesn't at this point when he goes off into this massive speech, because she's already tried to defy him. Again, huge quote here is "My fingers itch." It's metaphor, isn't it? Because actually what it means is that he's ready to slap her. So when we're talking about character, he is prepared to hit his daughter and be violent towards her in order to show his frustration and dominate her in terms of making her do as he wishes. "My fingers itch. I want to slap you." Okay. "Hang, beg, starve, die in the streets." Look, hang, beg, starve, die. Again, quick words to remember in light of his character, that he would disown her, wouldn't he? He would disown her, leave her on the streets to die if she doesn't do as he says. And that shows us how very serious he is about her marrying Paris. And when you're talking about the character of Capulet, it's very obvious here that it's not the same man from the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2. It is our stereotypical father. It is someone who has no regard for Juliet's happiness or what she wants, and he wants her to do as he says, dead straightforward. I think one of the biggest quotes that sum up not only his character, his relationship with Juliet, and the roles of men and women within society at the time, is, and you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. I think that's huge. And you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. As if she's a gift, as if she is a possession to be given away. And again, that leads us back to the context of the play, that women were seen as possessions to their father, and then when they got married, possessions of their husband. And they had to do, obviously, as they were told. Okay? And you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. Don't forget, if you can't remember these quotations, you are entitled to paraphrase. Using one-word quotations is absolutely fine. So don't forget about that. You can use a one-word quotation, like earlier on when I said ruled. But if you could remember these short quotations, that would be wonderful. And then at the end of the play, once Juliet is dead, we see him obviously extremely upset and mourning the loss of his daughter, so much so that he decides to create a statue in her honour. So he does regret the fact that she's dead, but he has played a big role in that. He's almost been one of the catalysts that has led to her death, because had he not sped up this arranged marriage to Paris, she perhaps wouldn't have been or felt forced to go to the friar for a way out. So he does lead in part to Juliet's death. This is an example question potentially from the exam. So you are given a section of the play. As you can see, they are down the left-hand side. And then the question there is in yellow. So starting with this conversation, explain how far you think Shakespeare presents Lord Capulet as a good father. Write about how Shakespeare presents Lord Capulet in this extract, how Shakespeare presents Lord Capulet in the play as a whole. So as I said, you do have to write about the play as a whole. So you're given the extract to write about, and then you have to extend that to the whole play. I've got 2 example responses, which I'll show you on the next slide, but let's just have a quick look at the section that we're given. So we've got Paris. What do you say to my suit? Capulet. But seeing over what I have said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride. Here we may think her ripe to be a bride. Paris. Younger than she our happy mother's maid. Capulet. And too soon marred are those so early made. Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she's the hopeful lady of my earth. But woo her, gentle Paris, get her heart. My will to her consent is but a part, and she agreed with her scope of choice, lies my consent and fair according voice. So that's the section you're given. Look again at the question to remind yourself. We're starting with this conversation, and then we're going to talk about Lord Capulet as a father and how he's presented in the whole play. It'll be a good idea to analyse and annotate the section you are given. So if we look, obviously key quotations in our answer here are going to be, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. When we're analysing, we probably need to analyse stranger, because he's referring to the naivety and the inexperience of Juliet in relationships with men. Also, he talks about the earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she. Okay? And we want to focus on hope here, because again, he is referring to Juliet and how he views her as his hope, as his only hope. And in this instant, it shows us how precious, I suppose, she is to him and why he is highly protective of her. And this idea that the world has swallowed all other hope he has is interesting, because it's almost as if Juliet's more than a daughter. Perhaps the only thing he has left to live for. Okay, so make sure you do annotate the section you're given, finding the key quotations and the words you think you need to hone in on in terms of an analysis. I also mentioned earlier on in the video that he does encourage Paris to woo Juliet and get her heart. Look at that, get her heart. That's almost metaphorical, as if you could just like pick it up. And again, I did mention that earlier, that it's as if he does want Juliet to be in love with the man that she ends up with. So again, pick your quotations wisely, and sure you can analyse them. This is a sample response, a grade 5/6, so C into B grade. In the extract from Act 1, Scene 2, it is obvious that Lord Capulet has his daughter's interests at heart. Paris has approached him to ask for Juliet's hand in marriage. However, Capulet seems less keen. Capulet refers to his daughter as a stranger in the world, which is an interesting way of describing her naivety and immaturity. Juliet is not too young to marry, but Capulet seems to be very concerned that she does not understand the world enough to then be married. His use of the word stranger is important here because it shows that Capulet sees Juliet as someone who does not understand how the world works. It is a concept that is almost alien to her. Capulet is also highly protective of Juliet, not just out of concern for her, but also for himself. He suggests that Juliet is his remaining hope in the world after all of his others were swallowed. This is interesting because Juliet appears to be more than just a daughter in this instance. She appears to be his purpose for living. This obviously contrasts with his later change of perspective on the matter, when he is forcing his daughter to marry. But at this early stage, we can see that Capulet might be interpreted as a good father with his daughter's best interests at heart. So you have a description, obviously, of his character, and we have the short quotations and their analysis. Okay, I'll just bring up a response now that was given a grade 8/9. So this was given a grade 8/9, so that's a potentially A star. Okay, there is an inherent irony to Capulet's protective proclivity towards Juliet in Act 1, Scene 2. When he refers to Juliet as a stranger in the world, there is an inherent sense that he wants to protect his daughter, naive and innocent as she is, against the incomprehensible terrors of the world. This is a father at his most protective and territorial against the preying designs of a suitor. Capulet wants his daughter afforded 2 more summers in which to ripen. The fruit metaphor is an interesting one because it is precisely this miscalculation about his daughter's maturity and his over-exaggeration of how long it will take her to mature that leads him into conflict with her later in the play. In his Lord Capulet's eyes, Juliet is unknowing of the pleasures and joys that love and relationships can bring. His naivety appears to be fed by a selfish disposition. He seeks to protect his last hope from being swallowed by the world because it seemingly maintains a veil of those parts of the world he wants to deny. So in that sense, we might argue that actually, rather than being a good father, Lord Capulet is in essence protecting his own perception of how he wants the world to be. Yet, paradoxically, in undertaking this seemingly selfish act, there is an almost default altruism at work. Lord Capulet can only protect his daughter and by definition be a good father, even if it is in selfish ways. Okay, so there's 2 different interpretations of his character at the beginning of the play. Obviously, as I say, one was given a grade 5/6, one an 8/9, and they are example paragraphs. This one, obviously, if you look closely, has got an analysis of metaphor, which is obviously a difficult thing to do for a lot of people. And if you look at the vocabulary as well, the vocabulary used to express character, and the interpretation of Lord Capulet's character is very original, isn't it? So whilst the grade 5 and 6 said he does come across as a good protective father, this one's talking about how actually it's potentially for selfish reasons. Okay, so I have a tendency to read fast, so if you do need to obviously re-look at those 2 paragraphs, that's absolutely fine. But the key things here, guys, are understanding Lord Capulet throughout the entire play. So that's Act 1, Scene 2, Act 3, Scene 4, Act 3, Scene 5, and at the end, even though that's very fleeting, remembering quotations and being able to analyse those quotations. Even, as I say, single words, analysing single words is absolutely fine. So knowing the character through the entire play, knowing quotations and being able to analyse quotations. And don't forget that as you go, making reference to context also helps you in terms of looking at the society that Shakespeare was writing in and about. I hope you found this video useful, guys. Good luck in your exam, and thank you for listening.